Hi, my name is Bianca and I am going to be presenting on work overload and job burnout. So pretty much an overview of what work overload is. Work overload, also known as role overload, is defined as a work task stressor and a common source of stress, and it's resulting when a job requires excessive speed, output, or concentration. Work overload is related to physiological indicators of stress. So things such as heart rate, blood pressure, stress hormones like cortisol, and just it could be assessed through those measures. And a quick thing to note about work overload is that, as the textbook states, work overload is actually widely believed to be one of the greatest sources of work stress, and it also in a diverse setting, like not just with police officers, firefighters, nurses, like it could be clerical workers, healthcare workers, air traffic controllers. It's very diverse and it affects many different areas of work. So for job burnout is actually a syndrome resulting from prolonged exposure to work stress, and that leads to withdrawal from the organization. It results from various things such as lack of clearly defined work tasks and responsibilities, extreme overwork, inappropriate punishment, and lack of appropriate rewards. So the textbook reference to job burnout is that it occurs in 3 phases. So pretty much there's emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and feelings of low personal accomplishment. So emotional exhaustion, this is caused by the excessive demands placed upon on the worker. Depersonalization is the development of insensitive attitudes towards people, and this can be an attitude towards your coworkers or even towards customers. You know, say you would usually be nice and bubbly and friendly, you would turn like more hostile or rude or just standoffish. And then the third one is marked by feelings of low personal accomplishments. So this is where a worker has feelings of helplessness, and people in this phase of burnout believe that their work efforts fail to produce their desired results. So they might even quit trying to put forth effort because they may feel just like overwhelmed or that they're not making a dent and they're just emotionally just done. So my personal experience, I actually experienced both of these at a very young age, and it was very horrible. And the setting was at a franchise smoothie bar. I worked at a smoothie shop that seemed very, like, I thought, how stressful could it be? And I was just trying to make money on the side, a job on the side, and my title was a team member. So the problems there was that pretty much work was not evenly distributed. So out of 8 staff members, only 2 were expected to go above and beyond like our team shift requirements, so myself and another coworker. But we had the same title as our coworkers, and it was just kind of expected. Like so many tasks that we had to get done within our shift, which was already like kind of difficult to do as like a group. But then additionally, we had these other jobs stacked up, and I had to personally get those done on the side on top of everything. So it was just very exhausting. We were often understaffed as well. There would be 1 to 2 people on a shift, which really wasn't that great because we were at a very like popular location. We were right next to a gym, so we were often slammed with a lot of like customers, and it was just really overwhelming, and it made it really hard to get work done. There was also like team member positions with management responsibilities, but we weren't like getting compensated for it, nor did we have that title. That was probably the main issue there as well. So like as time went on, my workload just started to grow and grow and grow, and I noticed that like it just wasn't changing, and I was so unhappy. And there were just so many tasks given to me that I was like not able to complete it at the time allotted, and it became just expected. It wasn't even just like, can you do this favor? It was like expected of me every single time, and I was held to a higher standard. So I just felt like completely overwhelmed, and there was just so much work to get done, and it just was a horrible feeling. And after about 8 months, I would say I started to feel have that work overload. But by the time I reached the 1-year mark, I was experiencing job burnout. Like I was emotionally exhausted. I didn't feel like I was just drained every time I went into work. I had depersonalization for sure with my coworkers. I was a bit more standoffish, and it just also, like, I just withdrew from my job altogether. Towards the end, I was just tardy, I would call off, and just ultimately just quit. Eventually, I just quit because I could no longer handle it. For the research article, I looked at a meta-analysis, an examination of the potential correlates and consequences of work overload. So the study used meta-analysis to quantitatively review workload literature, and it examined the relationship between the workload and work overload and its potential correlates and consequences. The study looked at 6 potential correlates of work overload, such as social support, employee well-being, psychologically and physically, and organizationally valued outcomes and employee withdrawal. So this was measured using the Hunter and Schmidt's approach to meta-analysis, and the results and findings were that there was a substantial amount of support for the relationship of work overload and well-being. So it was linked to emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and personal accomplishments, which were all stages of job burnout. And they also indicated that work overload was positively related to employee withdrawal. Additionally, researchers found that workers who felt that they had social support by supervisors and coworkers reported feeling less emotional exhaustion and other feelings related to job burnout. For solutions to the problem, the first and most important one is communication. So the textbook states that much of the stress from work comes from difficulties in interpersonal relations with supervisors and coworkers. So I just feel like if I had approached my boss at an earlier time, instead of allowing all my work to build up and just me essentially just burning out and not caring, I could have communicated early on instead of just like letting it build up. So that's actually something I definitely live by: better communication, lower stress. Also, individual coping strategies such as techniques like meditation, and that's something that I actually do now, and it really does put a lot in perspective. And lastly, designating work tasks evenly among employees. It would reduce work overload and decrease the likelihood of job burnout. And these are my sources. Thank you, everybody, for listening.